The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and distant barbecue smoke as I stepped out of the cab. Late spring in Georgia always had a way of mixing comfort with memory. I'd only planned to stay with my sister for a few weeks, just until I figured things out. I thought maybe after she won the lottery, things might shift between us. Not in the money sense, just something softer, a little warmth. But the moment she opened the front door, I knew better. "Hey," she said flatly, not moving from the threshold. No hug, no smile, just a nod toward the guest room like I was checking into a motel she didn't own. I stepped inside, offering a small potted succulent I picked up from the gas station. It was nothing fancy, but it was something. She didn't even glance at it. Her fiancé stood behind her, arms crossed, lips curved into a smug half-smile like he was enjoying a private joke. "Looks like you made it," he said. I nodded, unsure how to respond to that. The house smelled new, not the fresh paint kind of new, more like unfamiliar, cold. She used to be warm, even when life was hard. That warmth was gone. I dropped my backpack in the guest room, a few of my clothes, my laptop, and the last remnants of the job I'd just lost. My name was on nothing. I had no roots left, just her, or so I thought. 10 minutes later, she called out, "Can you come down for a sec?" I found her sitting on the edge of the couch, fingers interlaced like someone preparing for a confession. "I think it's time you go," she said. I blinked. "Go? You've had a tough time, I know. But I need to start setting boundaries, standing on my own." "What are you talking about? I'm here for a few weeks, like we agreed." She wouldn't look at me. Her fiancé chimed in from the kitchen, not even trying to pretend he wasn't listening. "Some people don't know when they've overstayed their welcome." She reached down and slid a duffel bag across the floor toward me, already packed. "You planned this," I said, voice low. "You couldn't even say it to my face before I got here?" Her jaw tightened. "It's for the best." I stared at her, the same sister I stayed up with during her divorce, the one who sobbed on my shoulder when that man cheated on her. I used to think that meant something. "Remember what you said back then?" I asked. "You said if you ever made it big, you'd make sure I was okay too." "That was before," she said quietly. "Before everything changed. Before she had $130 million and forgot what it felt like to need someone." I didn't say anything else. There was no point. The duffel strap bit into my shoulder as I walked down the driveway. Her fiancé stood at the door watching, smirking. Small town sidewalks always feel longer when you've got nowhere to go. I could feel the curtains shifting, eyes behind windows, people whispering before they even knew the story. I had $64 in my wallet and a phone battery slipping below 12%. A couple of dollars in loose change jingled in my pocket like an insult. By the time I got to the edge of the gas station lot, I sat on the curb and stared across the road. Thunder rolled low in the distance, building like the tightness in my chest. No motel, no plan. I tried calling Jordan, an old friend. Voicemail. Tried again. Nothing. My head dropped into my hands. I wasn't crying, just hollow. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Meet me at Old Pine Diner. Come alone. It's about your sister." I stared at the screen. The number wasn't saved. The message was precise. Urgent. No name. I stood slowly, heart thudding, and started walking. The diner was maybe 6 blocks down. My legs were sore, my bag heavier than it should have been. What could it be about my sister? Was it someone from her past? A family member I didn't know about? Or someone who saw the way she tossed me aside like junk mail? The sky darkened above as I neared the diner, the air thick with ozone. Lights glowed warm through the wide front windows. A few locals sat inside, forks clinking against plates, oblivious. There, in the far booth, sat a woman. Her back was to me, but something about the shape of her shoulders, the tension in her posture, it clicked. I stepped closer. She turned. My heart stopped. It had been years. She didn't smile, didn't even blink, just stared at me like I'd walked into a courtroom, and she held the verdict in her hands. "You need to know the truth," she said quietly, "before it's too late." I stood just inside the doorway, the smell of burnt coffee and fried eggs hanging in the air like the ghosts of breakfasts long gone. Rain tapped the windows in a lazy rhythm, and the low hum of an old jukebox filled the background with a tired tune. It was the kind of diner that never really closed, just dimmed the lights and waited for the night shift. She was already sitting at the back booth, hands wrapped tightly around a chipped ceramic mug. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, streaks of gray woven through the brown, and she looked thinner, as if life had worn her down in small, invisible ways. I recognized her. She used to work with my sister's fiancé. Back then, she was the one who handled numbers, quiet, efficient, and invisible to most. But tonight, she wasn't invisible. She was nervous. Kept glancing toward the man at the counter who stirred his coffee too slowly, like he had nowhere else to be but here. The waitress gave me a tight-lipped smile as I passed. She asked for you by name, said it was important. I slid into the booth across from her, still gripping the strap of my bag like it might float me out of this mess. "It's been a while?" I said. She nodded. "Not long enough." Her eyes were sharp, scanning my face as if trying to confirm I hadn't changed too much. She leaned in. "I used to work for him, you know. Not just at the company, personal books too." I didn't say anything. I wasn't here to talk about his taxes. "There's something wrong with the way the money's being handled," she said, voice low. "Your sister's winnings. They're not where they should be." I raised an eyebrow. "Meaning what, exactly?" "Meaning," she pulled a folded paper from her coat pocket. "I found this." She flattened it on the table between us. It was a copy, grainy but legible. My name was there, partially blacked out. Something about asset redirection, trust amendments, legal language that smelled like trouble. "I don't know why your name came up," she said, "but I think he's using her, setting up a way to control the money without her realizing it." I stared at the page. Why would he include me at all? She hesitated. "That's what worries me." There it was again, that feeling I couldn't shake. The way he kept me from the mail. The way my sister's eyes darted when I asked about the winnings. The way she'd gone quiet when I mentioned her will once in passing. I thought back to the call I'd overheard last week. Him whispering about changing the beneficiary and tightening timelines. I looked at the woman. "You think I'm a threat to his plan?" "I think you were," she said. "Now, maybe you're part of it." I leaned back, stomach knotting. The truth hits different when it's tied to a name on paper. My voice was low. I dropped out of college to care for my mom when she got sick. I gave up years, and somehow, I'm the one being erased. She didn't try to console me. That helped in a strange way. She reached into her purse and slid a thick, sealed envelope across the table. "You'll want to look through this later, not here." I didn't touch it. "You can't go back to that house without knowing more," she continued. "He's done this before. Women, money, control. Why are you helping me?" Her eyes didn't flinch. "Because I didn't help the last one, and she ended up worse off than you." From her coat pocket, she pulled out a small, battered flip phone, disposable. "Don't use your regular phone. If they're watching your mail, they're watching your calls." I took it. She stood slipping out of the booth like a shadow. I waited until the door shut behind her, before picking up the envelope and sliding it into my bag. The rain had grown heavier. It hit my back in thick, cold sheets as I stepped outside. A dark SUV idled across the street, engine humming low, windows tinted black, no license plate light. My phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a message from my sister. "Come back. We need to talk." I didn't move. Inside the diner, the man at the counter stood, walked over to where the woman had been sitting and leaned in close like they knew each other well. I started walking. Not home, not yet, just away. I needed time to think, but I knew I'd go back. I had to. As I stepped into the rain, clutching the envelope to my chest, I realized I might be walking straight into their game. By the time I pulled into her driveway, the rain was coming down sideways like the sky had lost patience. Headlights cut through the foggy blur and hit the house, windows glowing faint behind curtains, soft amber leaking into the wet night. The driveway was slick, and I nearly skidded, stopping behind her fiancé's car. It was parked at a crooked angle, like someone had rushed in and didn't bother correcting. The hood was still radiating heat. He was here. I killed the engine, let the silence settle before stepping out. Water soaked through my jacket in seconds. I stood at the door, key still in hand, and said it to myself, quiet but sure. This isn't my home anymore, but tonight, it's my battleground. Inside, it was too still, too careful. The only sound was the slow tick from the old grandfather clock down the hall. No music, no footsteps. Just that steady, patient ticking like something watching me count down. I stepped further in. That photo still hung by the staircase, our family portrait from years ago. Only this time, someone had cleanly cut my face out. I looked at the gap, not torn, cut, deliberate. My phone buzzed in my pocket. One word. Alone? I didn't answer. She was in the kitchen pretending she hadn't been listening for the door, stirring a spoon in a mug that didn't need stirring. Glad you came, she said. Her voice was smooth, but her eyes gave it away, flicking between me and the hallway behind me. I figured we should finish the conversation you and your boyfriend started without me. She forced a smile. Let's not do this again. It was just a misunderstanding. Things got emotional. You mean when I found out my name's on paperwork I didn't sign? Her jaw tightened just a twitch. Then she shrugged like it was beneath her. I really don't know what you're talking about. You always jump to conclusions. Families should trust each other. Trust? I said. Dad used to say, trust is earned, not owed. Her face went blank for a moment, like the wind had been knocked out of her. But she collected herself, eyes narrowing just slightly. You've been talking to the wrong people, letting others turn you against us. You think strangers care about you more than your own blood? I didn't answer. I just looked at her. She glanced at her phone. I have to take this. She walked out to the front porch. I waited a beat, then moved. The study was down the hall. Same room Dad kept his old records in, before it all went sideways. I closed the door behind me, turned on the lamp, and there it was, paper after paper. My name typed across headers, signatures forged in ink that had barely dried, transfers, deeds, legal filings. I opened the top drawer of the desk. A folder slid halfway open. Inside, a printed spreadsheet of transactions I didn't recognize. Then a statement from a bank I'd never heard of. Names, hers and his, but the origin I should account. My numbers. A hidden drawer under the desk gave a soft click when I pressed against the side. I reached in and found it. A small black flash drive labeled in messy Sharpie. Backup. I slipped it into my coat pocket like it might burn me. My breath shook, but my hand didn't. You're not going to erase me, I whispered. I turned, and there he was, soaking wet from the storm, a wet phone in his hand. That smug grin that never reached his eyes. Looking for something? I stayed still, let the weight shift back to my heels. Stay balanced, stay calm. You were in such a rush, I said, didn't park too well. He didn't laugh, just looked at me, eyes hard and measured. You know this could get you in trouble. I didn't say anything. He held up the phone. Breaking and entering, theft, harassment, these things add up real fast. You walk out with anything tonight, you'll be lucky if it's just a fine. I tilted my head. You worried about something being taken? He smirked. I'm just trying to help you avoid digging a hole you can't climb out of. I gave him a look I hoped cut deeper than words. That hole was already dug. I'm just shining a light in it. His hand shifted slightly like he might step forward. I kept one hand in my coat pocket covering the flash drive. I smiled. Anyway, I should go. I'll come back tomorrow. We'll clear this up properly. He didn't move, just stared. She was back inside now, stiff, guarded. I'm glad you came, she said again, like it meant anything now. She stepped toward me like she wanted to hug me. I didn't move, I just looked at her. No hard feelings, right? She added. I didn't reply. I turned toward the door. On the way out, I stopped again at the photo, still there, my absence still cut out. I reached up and took it down, folded it gently under my arm. He didn't stop me. Outside, the rain wasn't drops anymore. It was sheets, like the whole sky was trying to wash something away. I stepped into it, soaked in seconds, but I didn't run, I didn't hurry. I walked out the way I came in, quiet, cold, but not empty-handed. I walked in powerless. I was leaving with their secret weapon. I didn't know yet how dangerous the flash drive was, or how far they'd go to get it back. The road glowed under the storm's glare as I drove away. Rain hammered the windshield like small drums, and every flick of the wiper carried a tense beat. My stomach twisted in knots. I glanced in the rearview mirror. A car's headlights hovered too close, too steady, not passing, following. I slowed just slightly to see if it would fall back. It didn't. I turned onto side streets, weaving through curves, trying to lose it. But the car was still there. Then a sharp turn, heart hammering. I was being hunted. My phone rang. Unknown. I hesitated, muscles taut. A hushed voice whispered, "Stop digging or you'll regret it." The words struck me cold. I barely managed to say, Who is this? What do you want?" before the line went dead. The silence got heavy, oppressive. My pulse thudded. The envelope from the diner lay on the seat beside me, its weight suddenly loaded. They knew. I navigated through back roads until I reached a modest house on the town's edge, Bram's old place. He'd offered it as a safe space once. I slipped inside, locking every door behind me, curtains drawn. The darkness pressed close. I set the documents and flash drive on the kitchen table and flipped through them under the glow of my phone. Legal forms, account transfers, numbers I'd never seen. Then, to the front door, a quiet click. The knob twisted. My heart screamed. I grabbed the only weapon nearby, a kitchen knife. The doorknob jiggled again. My breath caught. I pressed myself against the wall, waiting. It stopped. Nothing moved, like someone had decided not to cross the line yet. I peeked through a narrow window and saw a dark figure retreating into the night. Rain blurred their shape. My chest tightened with anger and fear. I shouted, "Whoever's there, stay out of this." My voice shook, but it carried. Silence answered me. Then just the rain, relentless, as if mocking me. I closed my eyes and made a vow. This was no longer defense. Morning light slipped in through curtains when Bram appeared, carrying coffee. His face was drawn. "You look like hell," he said, placing a cup in front of me. His phone buzzed. He leaned close. "Look at this." He flipped the screen around. My car, caught in headlights. The location, my sister's driveway. The caption, "She's cleaning house. Watch what you dig up." My jaw clenched. They weren't just following me. They were exposing me, publicly. Twist S7. I stared into my coffee for a long moment. Fear flared, but underneath it grew something sharp, defiance. I gathered the papers, tucked the flash drive close. I looked up. Then let's go on offense. In Bram's reflection, I saw someone bruised, wary, but no longer silent. The war had begun. I woke before dawn, the sky a bruise of gray. I sat up, foggy-headed, still holding the flash drive in my palm as if it anchored me. The room was silent. I slipped outside, coat over my shoulders, and walked to the park a few blocks away. No buses, no cars, just quiet pathways, benches, and the soft crunch of leaves underfoot. A few old couples walked in companionable silence. Birds stirred in the hedges. I slid onto a bench. I thought about what had been stolen from me, not just money or land, but something deeper, trust, a place to belong, identity. Then Dad's words echoed, "You don't get to choose your family, but you do choose your boundaries." I looked at the flash drive again. I'd drawn lines already, and today I'd finally act. My phone vibrated. Her name lit the screen, my sister. I pressed the button instinctively. Her voice trembled. "We need to talk, without anyone else." That simple sentence cracked something inside me. Trap? Appeal? I asked, "Where?" She said, "Coffee shop on Lincoln, just us." I paused, heart hesitant. I tucked the flash drive inside my boot, out of sight. Hands firm, I rehearsed calm, steady breathing. I agreed. I headed toward the car, mind replaying every lie, every omission. Today's silence wouldn't win. The coffee shop smelled of roasted beans and warm pastry. She was there, sleeves pushed up, hands around a mug she hadn't touched. We began with safe talk, weather, traffic, but beneath it, tension coiled. Then she turned sharp. "You're stealing my peace," she said, voice brittle. "Spreading lies." I held her look. "What peace are you talking about? The kind you buy with silence?" Her eyes flicked. She bit her lip. "I know about the diner meeting," she spat. Twist S9 struck. "Someone followed you." My pulse jerked. I leaned forward. "I'm not hiding. I'm uncovering." She tried to dismiss me, her posture weakening. "There's a bank account," I said. "Your name, his, linked to me?" Her hand trembled around the mug. She swallowed, face draining color. "I was manipulated too," she whispered. "He threatened me. Lose him or cut you off." Like a confession and accusation all at once. Twist S10 spilled between us. My chest twisted, pain and anger raging. She trembled. "Wouldn't you have done the same?" she asked, defeated. My voice stayed firm. "That's the difference. I don't sell people out to feel safe." The shop quieted around us. A server paused. Other patrons glanced. I reached into my coat pocket and laid out a sealed envelope, copies of evidence. I said quietly, "This is your chance. Not for me, for you. Do the right thing." She stared at it. Her fingers hovered, but she didn't touch it. I stood, my presence steadied. Sometimes the only way to save someone is to stop rescuing them. I turned and walked out. The shop's bell chimed behind me. I didn't look back. Through the glass, I saw her sitting, trembling, the envelope before her, her eyes fixed on it as if it wounded her. I walked into the morning, rain threatening on the horizon. Sadness flickered in me, but beneath it, clarity. I had drawn my line. She'd either cross it or be broken by it. I woke to a storm of messages, dozens of missed texts, unanswered calls, and the envelope still lying on my desk unopened. The memory of her eyes at the coffee shop flickered in my mind. The weight of betrayal sat heavy in my chest. I opened my laptop, plugged in the flash drive, and watched as folder after folder loaded. Property transfers, contracts, amendments, the names, the numbers, they were all there. Then a text arrived. "You crossed a line. Back off." Unknown sender. My jaw clenched. They were starting to press, but I wasn't backing down. I whispered, "They can threaten me, but I will not yield." I shut the laptop, straightened my posture. Today wouldn't be sheltered in fear. My email inbox was a minefield. New messages flooded in with links labeled "Evidence" and "Proofs. Your lies exposed." I clicked to open one. A file name glowed back. "Fund diversion, your account." My heart froze. Twist. S11. Someone had faked documents showing I'd siphoned money from her account. Panic surged, but I forced stillness. I deleted, archived, hovered, refused to click more. My phone rang. Markellis's name blocked the screen. "Stay calm. Don't reply or forward anything. They're trying to trap you." his voice steady. "Preserve every file. Don't erase a thing." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I gathered screenshots, sorted legitimate ones, cleared trash. The attempt to smear me felt like a blow, but I was learning to block the cut. Later, I attended a local gala, community event, charity fund dinner. I wanted to show I was still here. As I sat through acknowledgments, my blood ran cold. Instead of using my name, the MC addressed the crowd. "We celebrate the legacy built by Amari and her partner." No mention of me. Silence echoed. The audience shifted, gasps rippled. I forced myself not to clench my fists. Betrayal stung because it was witnessed. I caught my sister's face from the stage, her lips turned up in a faint mocking smile. I nodded politely, welcomed applause I didn't want, and slipped away quietly when it ended. I refused their narrative, but they were trying to override it. Back at Bram's safe house, I exhaled. I dialed Callum, then Marcellus. I laid out what had happened, the fake debt email, the gala omission. Callum agreed to dive into server logs, find origin IPs. Marcellus would have a forensics specialist trace edits to the gala script. I thought of the diner woman's phrase, "Watch where they hide their weakness." Counter-Strike had to be precise, factual, not emotional. I felt fear like an old bruise, but beneath it, resolve. No more reaction, only purpose. I drafted a public letter, truths I'd proofread until each sentence bore weight. Not posted yet. I duplicated all evidence onto 3 thumb drives and hid them in different spots. I reached out quietly to witnesses, bank clerks, contractors, neighbors, those who'd seen odd activity. I marked a date, a public event at her mansion, where I'd force the reveal. In a mirror, I practiced my voice, calm, clear, unwavering. "I can't continue like this," I whispered to my reflection. The path ahead was lonely, but I felt the courage that only happens when someone finally stops running. I paced the living room of Bram's hideout, evidence spread across the floor like a puzzle screaming to be solved. My phone buzzed, a message from Callum. "We found something in the storage shed." My breath caught. Dad's voice echoed in my memory. "Be careful who you trust." That warning had haunted me all these years, but now I was going somewhere tonight that might expose more than lies. I packed a small bag, flashlight, gloves, the flash drive, copies of forged documents, phone. I paused at the door, heart heavy with dread, but sharpened by purpose. I locked the door behind me and stepped into the dusk, moving under cover of shadows, determined that tonight the tide would turn. The old storage shed stood off the family property, half hidden by overgrown vines and rusted hinges. I flicked on my flashlight. Boards creaked underfoot. Dust hung in the air, boxes piled high, some labeled Cortez Estate Archives. I edged inside, the beam bouncing off cartons and neglected trunks. Each step felt crucial. Under a threadbare tarp, I discovered a safe, its lock old but intact. My pulse hammered. This might be it, the proof they never meant me to find. I knelt in the dim beam, fingers trembling just slightly, and worked the dial. It yielded. The door swung open. Inside was a trove of documents, old deeds, handwritten ledgers, contracts in my name, contracts I never knew existed. The safe's interior smelled of aging paper and secrets. Twist S13 struck. The documents showed the land was always meant to be split between me and Amari, but after Father's death, they were altered. Mother's handwriting showed transfer entries made after a meeting I'd never known about. I photographed everything with my phone, each image like a slap to their lies. The shock was fierce, vindication bleeding through grief. I lingered, turning over the papers. Then something else caught my eye, a cabinet drawer, worn leather flap barely visible. I pulled it open. Inside lay a small box. I lifted the cloth, a leather strap bearing a stencil, a tattoo design. My fingers traced the pattern. Twist S14 revealed itself, the same motif on Amari's fiancé's wrist, a symbol tied to secret contracts. I realized then, he branded his deals. That symbol was his mark. This proof wasn't just paper. It was the brand of control. I tucked documents and the flash drive into my bag, heart racing, mind clamoring with the implications. Then a distant door slammed. Someone was close. I didn't pause. I sprinted across the yard, rain beginning to fall, soaking me mid-run. I reached my car. My phone rang. Mother's number. I answered, heart pounding. No words, only breath, then silence. Then the line disconnecting. I slammed the phone closed and started the engine. As I pulled away, rain soon turning into sheets. A realization struck. They thought they erased me. They forgot I remember everything. I drove up to the mansion just as evening settled in. The charity gala was in full swing. Lights, red carpet, cameras flashing. Guests in gowns and suits ascended the marble steps. I stepped out of my car with purpose. I wasn't arriving as a victim. I was coming to expose lies. The discreet pin on my lapel, linked to that silver spoon echo, felt heavier tonight. Inside, I saw her smiling, greeting dignitaries beside her fiancé. Her posture was too perfect. She caught my eye and faltered. Across the room, Callum gave me a quick nod, staying in the shadows. That was enough confirmation. This was our moment. Her speech began smoothly, her voice polished. The usual semantic flourishes about giving back, family, legacy. I stood up from the back row and walked toward the stage. The chatter died. She paused mid-sentence. I have something to share, I said into the microphone. Her complexion drained. I held up the documents, the original contracts, the safe extracts. These prove joint ownership, I said, altered after father died. A ripple passed through the crowd. Her aides stiffened, murmurs swelled. Cameras moved. She struck back. He's fabricating stories, she cried. He's trying to discredit me. Then a screen lit up behind us, a clipped, distorted audio recording of me. The audience gasped. She smirked, confident. Twist S16. But I was ready. I inserted a flash drive. That's manipulated, I said simply. The second screen flickered with the full, unedited recording. My voice clear, uninterrupted. Her face changed. The crowd's murmurs shifted. She faltered. Later, backstage in her study, she confronted me. She stood behind her desk, holding a check and a packet. Final offer, she said steadily. Sign the ceasing agreement. Take the check. Walk away. Otherwise, I'll bury you legally. Her eyes were hard now, calculating. She pushed both documents forward. I slid the flash drive onto the desk in front of her. I won't trade the truth for your money, I said. She clenched her jaw, rage flickering behind her eyes, but she made no move toward the check. I left the study into the night, the storm returning, as if summoned. Outside, guests stared, whispering as I crossed the foyer. Callum met me at the car. They believed you, he said quietly. My phone buzzed. A press release was already drafting. Behind the wheel, rain battered the windshield. I felt a shift. For once, the narrative belonged to me. Relief washed through me, but war isn't won in one strike. As I pulled away, my phone lit. She has one last move. Be careful. I woke up with the taste of metal in my mouth. Something in me had already sensed it, that the night hadn't truly ended. My phone screen lit up in the dark with a string of missed calls and one voicemail from a blocked number. I didn't play it, not yet. Instead, I checked the feed from the security camera I'd installed last month. The footage showed a figure, blurry, just standing there by the stairwell. They never rang the bell, just waited, long enough to be seen, then gone. My hands trembled as I called Callum. I didn't even say hello, just breathed into the phone. He spoke softly. She's rattled. You stood your ground. That's not a game she knows how to play. I nodded even though he couldn't see it. The fear was real, but it no longer controlled me. I made myself coffee, sat on the floor, and stared at the ceiling. The silence in my apartment wasn't empty. It was full of choices. I was ready now for whatever came next. A few hours later, I stood in Markellis's office again. He was sharper than most attorneys, his eyes like he'd already read your secrets. But today, he looked almost pleased. "We've got one last card," he said, sliding a folder toward me. "There's a clause, an amendment to the property transfer. It was supposed to be signed by both your parents. It never was." I stared at the document, and the words blurred for a second. This was it. Twist S18. Everything she'd built her claim on, or as it wasn't legal. I covered my mouth with one hand and just sat there for a moment. I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because after all these years, the truth had finally found daylight. He let me sit with it, then said, "You've got two choices. Go to court, make it public, or you quietly take control and walk away." I didn't answer right away. I watched dust float in the sunlight, cutting through his blinds. Justice had always felt like a weapon in my hand. Now I wasn't sure if I wanted to use it or just put it down. By the afternoon, I was parked in front of the house I grew up in. I hadn't told anyone I was coming. I walked through the old gate, weeds brushing my legs. The garden still smelled the same, says like overripe tomatoes and wet soil. I didn't knock. I just stood there waiting. When she opened the door, she looked older. Not just in the face, but in the eyes. She didn't scowl, she didn't sneer, she just looked tired. I handed her the envelope with the legal papers. "This isn't revenge," I said, "it's repair." She stared at it for a long time, then asked, "What do you want from me?" I breathed in and let the answer settle before speaking. Nothing, except the truth to finally breathe. She didn't fight me. She didn't fold either. She just nodded once, slow, as if it cost her something. The days after were quiet. The media frenzy softened. People kept reaching out, strangers, old friends. Some sent letters. Some just sent silence, which was its own kind of peace. Callum came by often. We didn't talk much. We'd just sit. Sometimes outside, sometimes at the kitchen table. There was comfort in not having to explain anything. I found myself writing again, not for anyone else, just to remember how to put thoughts into words without shaking. Above my desk, I framed the old silver spoon, not because it meant victory, but because it had survived like I had. I rejoined the community center, not because it made me look good, but because it felt like a beginning, something beyond survival. One night, I copied a quote on a sticky note and put it next to the spoon. "Forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could have been any different." Oprah said that, and she was right. A week later, I went to the cemetery. The wind was sharp. I stood between the stones, one hand in my coat pocket. I whispered things I should have said years ago. Told them I turned out okay. Told them their silence didn't kill me. I left behind nothing but breath. I didn't need to win everything. I just needed space to heal. So I made a quiet donation, half of what was mine, to a fund supporting mental health for kids who'd seen too much too soon. It didn't erase anything, but it planted something new. That night I sat on the porch with a notebook and a pen, wrote 4 words, "How silence became scream." Then I stopped, looked up. The sky was changing colors, the kind of change that doesn't ask for attention. It just happens. I sat there a long time listening to nothing and feeling everything. My story ended here, or so I thought. But sometimes peace isn't the final page.